Friday night, everybody. Welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'm going to share with you guys the 12 movies I watched in November. So, 12 is a very minuscule amount of movies that I've watched in a single month in a long time. These past few months, I averaged about 20 to possibly 25 to even close to 30. So it was a very light month for movie watching. So without making this video way too long, let's go ahead and kick it off. And the first movie I watched in November was The Pyramid. And I watched this on Max, as it's now called. And this is essentially a found footage movie that takes place in Egypt. And it's about this team of, well, they're not archaeologists, but the main guy is an archaeologist and his daughter's with him. And they have this film crew with them. And they encounter supernatural Egyptian entities. And they also come across Anubis. So basically, Anubis wanted to sacrifice somebody to stay alive for eternity. I do like the approach that this movie went for. It was found footage, which is a genre that I'm not really a fan of, but I thought that this was one of the better ones. So that was The Pyramid. Next movie was a rewatch of Captain Marvel, and this was only the second time I ever saw this movie since theaters. Right off the bat, not one of my favorite MCU movies. I find this to be very forgettable, and I know Brie Larson tried to do the best she could, but she didn't have much going for her. But this is about a woman by the name of Carol Danvers who was abducted by the Kree Republic, and they brainwashed her, erased all her memories, and forced her to side with them. And they have to fight the Skrulls, which are some shape-shifting alien creatures. So, this movie also acts as a prequel to the MCU because it takes place in the 90s. You get a young Nick Fury and a young Phil Coulson. The villain in here is Jan Rog, played by Jude Law, and he is so forgettable. But I don't have much else to say about this movie. It's fine for what it is, but I don't see myself rewatching it as often. But that was Captain Marvel. Followed by its sequel, The Marvels. And this movie, although a better movie than Captain Marvel, I found that you had to do homework for it. And I did get into it a little bit when I did my dual review of this. But anyway, this reunites Captain Marvel, but you also get the introduction of Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan, also known as Ms. Marvel. So this movie acts as a Captain Marvel sequel a continuation of WandaVision, a continuation of Ms. Marvel, and it also acts as like Captain Marvel 3. And this movie is only like 105 minutes. So this movie was a mess. The villain, generic as all hell. Her name was Dar-Ben, and it was like a Dollar General version of Ronan the Accuser. So, this movie was fine, but the Marvels kind of like made me lose interest in the MCU. But anyway, that's why I like took a break from watching all of these MCU movies. But that series will continue in January, but I won't watch them as frequently as I did starting back in August. But that was my little rant on the Marvels and the MCU's state. Because the MCU is in trouble. There is one positive thing. We only have like one movie coming out next year. So, hopefully, they can take a break with releasing 4 of them per year. And we only get one. And it's Deadpool 3. So that was my stint on the Marvels. But the next movie I watched was The Silence of the Lambs. Totally different vibe here. But I watched this just to watch it. And this was the second time I ever saw it. And it still holds up. It's a psychological thriller that features Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. And Jodie Foster is Clarice Starling. She's like an FBI trainee who finds an interest in Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins. And he is in like a psychiatric ward. He helps Clarice Starling track down Buffalo Bill, which is even more psychotic than Hannibal Lecter, because he abducts women and skins them, and he wears their suit for his skin. So it's a really rough movie, but it's a classic, and it really stands the test of time. No wonder why it was in my top 50 horror movies of all time. It is that good. So that was The Silence of the Lambs. The next movie I watched was Cabin Fever. And I've had this copy for 20 years. I've seen this movie multiple times, and it is Eli Roth's directorial debut. And this movie is Eli Roth's vision on cabin in the woods trope. There's a flesh-eating virus that sweeps this country, and there are like 5 teenagers who are the victims of it. So this movie is gory and hilarious and weird all at the same time. But this movie is a blast. I mean, Peter Jackson says, an unrelenting, gruesomely funny bloodbath. So, it's good, but it ain't for everybody. But that was Cabin Fever. And not to mention, you get Ryder Strong in here, and he is the best part of this whole movie. Boom. Followed by Next Goal Wins, and this was a new Taika Waititi sports comedy based on a true story about the American Samoan soccer team. They were known to be the worst team in soccer history, and they suffered a loss from Australia 31-0. And in 2011, they won one game 2-0, and they didn't even qualify for the World Cup. That's this movie in a nutshell. But I just found this movie to be okay. I don't think Taika Waititi is the right director for me. He's too quirky and very weird. But I do like Thor Ragnarok quite a bit. Thor Love and Thunder. Haven't seen Jojo Rabbit. But I do like him in Free Guy. And I haven't watched What We Do in the Shadows, but I don't know. Taika Waititi might not be for me. But that was Next Goal Wins. The next movie, and I think this might be my favorite movie of the month, The Holdovers. And this was a new old-fashioned Christmas dramedy starring Paul Giamatti, and he is a history professor who works at this private boys' school, and he is in charge of the kids who are left behind, who have nowhere to go for the holidays, and he's looking after the holdovers. And he also befriends a lunch lady who recently lost her son in Vietnam, but he also befriends his student, and it's an unlikely friendship that will warm your heart but also break your heart. This movie was a complete surprise, and I really enjoyed it. So that was The Holdovers. And if you want my thoughts, I did do a dual review on Next Goal Wins and The Holdovers. But moving on, the next one I watched was Thanksgiving. And another Eli Roth movie. And this was 16 years in the making. And it's just a Thanksgiving slasher. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. And I found all the kills to be like festive. It's just a blast all the way through. And as of recording this, I heard the news yesterday that there will be a sequel coming out in 2025. So I definitely can't wait for it. And I definitely do think that John Carver is going to be a new horror icon. So that was Thanksgiving. Next, believe it or not, is a documentary. I Stand Alone, the Sully Erna story. And Sully Erna is the lead singer of Godsmack. But this documentary is a documentary. It's 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 a documentary told his story as you never heard it before. He actually started off as like a drummer in a lot of hair metal bands and even metal bands. This was just a very interesting look on his life. Godsmack had been together since like 95, and I still really do enjoy that band. But they would probably be in like my top 20 bands of all time. So this was just a documentary about his life. Next, Good Burger 2. Yeah, whoever thought we needed a sequel. But this was the newly released original movie from Paramount Plus, and it reunites Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell, and it's just more hilarity from like the 90s. This movie was like nearly 30 years in the making. And I felt like I was on an acid trip when I watched this movie, because it's even sillier than the original. So anyway, Megacorp buys Good Burger, and they want to expand, but they make robots in the likeness of Ed, and it's up to Dexter and Ed to stop them. This movie was weird, but I definitely preferred the original more. The original one is not a masterpiece, but it was a childhood staple of mine. So that was Good Burger 2. Followed by the last new release movie I watched, Napoleon. And nothing much to say here. I didn't do a review on it, so here are my thoughts. This stars Joaquin Phoenix, and he plays Napoleon Bonaparte, which was like a tyrant and a general for the French army. And this just features his life until death. So he was a very strategic general in battle, but at the Battle of Waterloo, which I believe he was fighting the Russians, he was just overwhelmed, and that was his downfall. So he was exiled to St. Helens Island for 6 years, and then he died. That's how this movie ends. I found this movie to be kind of disappointing. I wanted a lot more out of it. It is a 2.5 hour movie, but there's not much of a plot here. He's just having marital issues, and it's just a battle scene, then back to marital issues. I wanted more battle scenes. So I would have probably gave this movie like a C. It was fine, but not one of my favorites this year. So that was Napoleon. And the final movie I watched was Father Figures. And this is a dramedy that features Owen Wilson and Ed Helms, and they play two brothers who try to find out who their real father is. So it's like a road trip comedy, and the main twist, their mother died in childbirth, and they never found out who their father was. So this is like an endearing road trip comedy that will make you laugh quite a bit, but then it'll break your heart at the end. Really did enjoy this movie. I think it was like the second time I ever saw it, and it's a really fun comedy that has a little bit of dramatic elements. So those were the 12 movies I watched in November. Hope you guys enjoyed. And my next video, I'm probably going to try and wrap up Novella November. So I have one more book that I'm in the middle of. Once I finish that, I will definitely film that video, because I did read a lot of books in November, so I'll talk about them. But tomorrow, I decided to finally go see the new Hunger Games movie, so I might film a video for that as well. And then on Sunday, I'm going to go see Silent Night, which is like a new action revenge thriller. I'll have a review on that as well. So that's all I got for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios. Peace.